We are Lagos Talks 91.3.
It's the live drive right here on Lagos Talks 91.3. My name is Ifunaya. It is time for your number one human resource show where we dissect pertinent topics relevant to the human resource scope. And we have a very special guest in the studio to analyze today's topic. Before getting into today's topic, of course, I would have to introduce him. He is an alumnus of the prestigious Yale School of Management and the University of Lagos. He is a thoroughbred, licensed global human resources, learning and talent development professional. He has under his belt over 3 decades of cognate work experience spanning several industries and sectors. His expertise, experience, exposure, competencies, and capabilities span strategy development, execution, corporate excellence, leadership, extra legendary customer service, talent management, and the list goes on and on. He is currently the executive consultant, global head of practice at Bezalel Consulting Group. He is the 20th president and chairman of the Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria. He is none other than Mr. Olusegun Mojeed. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ify. Nice to be here, and thank you for having me once again.
Nice to have you here in the studio. All right, so let's dive right into it, because today's topic is one that is super important, especially in the climate that we are at the moment. I'm talking about employee retention, and I'm sure a whole lot of people that might be having issues in this area are super excited, because having these questions answered by you would definitely go a long way. We're just going to start with what really employee retention is.
Okay. Employee retention, or even retention, in a larger sense, is to retain.
Okay.
So what is employee retention? It should be described as those things an organization will do to keep its best people from leaving. Mind my word. Not just anybody from leaving, but to keep its best people from leaving. If you look at it again, you could add anything that an organization will do to keep the attrition rate, at the acceptable level. What do you mean by attrition rate? The rate at which people are leaving the organization. And I can tell you, it is possible.
It is possible. And I like that. That's giving people hope. Especially now when we know that there is a Jackpot syndrome around, and understanding that there's so many enticing offers coming left, right, center. And with the help of technology that has made the world a global village, we have access to these different opportunities. Matter of fact, they are pursuing you. You open your email, you're seeing apply here, remote job here, or, we could sponsor your visa here. So in the case of employee retention in a climate where a lot of people are looking for ways to leave the country, how possible is employee retention, and what can the employers do to ensure this happens?
Okay, number one, I call it the Jackpot phenomenon.
Jackpot phenomenon.
Yes, because whenever people use the word syndrome, it's like somebody is sick somewhere. No, there are lots of positive slants to the Jackpot, situation, to the Jackpot phenomenon.
Absolutely.
It's true that, yes, there are opportunities. In fact, one of the positive things about Jackpot is that as people are jackpotting, opportunities are opening up for others.
Exactly.
So for me, an organization that knows what it's doing, that knows its onion, is able to put those things in place that will make the employee to stay. Especially the good ones. Let me tell you this, that I have worked in such an environment before, and we keep talking about Jackpot. Jackpot is not just happening. You may see that it has heightened, the rate has gone up, but I can tell you, in the 2000s, people were leaving organizations and so on. I once worked in an environment that it was difficult for me as the lead of the team to give management a 0.8 0.8 attrition rate that is set. Management has set this 0.8 attrition rate, yes, as a standard that which when we bring the HR report, they want to see that. But we could not give management 0.5. You know that 0.8% of 2,000 employees, for instance, is like 16 people. We could not give. So it has, and what happened is because of the things that were on ground, that company used to be called V-Mobile. I don't know. So,
interesting.
yes.
Wow.
So I'm telling you, it was difficult for us to give management that, attrition rate. Why were they? Because they were not going. They stayed. The condition was super. And what are those things put in place? Once your employees understand the goal of the organization and they are made to be part of it, when they are given, they are encouraged to be creative. They are encouraged to contribute their portion, to what is going on. They can see their contribution in the processes that make that make money for the organization. They become involved. Okay, some of the things you may know, you may think it's not this. The ordinary, thank God it's Friday session.
There you go.
Coming together, getting familiar, the same level where you see the CEO mingling, where
Absolutely.
you see the directors mingling with everyone else. In those days, we have, our customer care center, they are even more, they are more forthcoming in having this, call it gigs.
Okay.
After office hours.
Okay.
It was one family. So organizations should not just be profit. There should be time, to see how we can create, a home, away from home when we come to work. I want to wake up in the morning and feel excited. I am going to work. And what my team members, how friendly are they? The boss I report to, how is he? How am I encouraged? So before you know it, you discover that deliberately, I'm not mentioning remuneration. We'll come back to that because you can call it all kinds of names.
Yeah.
You call it pepper, you call it anything. It matters. But in some climb, you will discover that the issue of remuneration comes in terms of money, comes to, third, fourth, in pegs when you have that kind of thing. So for me, the human interaction, goes a long way. Is it a place I want to wake up in the morning and feel good to go to? Believe me, it's very important. And that was what the situation in that company I mentioned earlier on.
I love the fact that you mentioned, creating that type of environment that people feel is a home away from home. Because just looking at the system and the structure in Nigeria, we can say that we spend most of our time at work, 9 to 5. And so who wants to go to a place where they are dreading for the whole, 5 hours or 7 hours, whatever the case might be, right? So I like the fact that you emphasized a home away from home, making it an environment that people are looking forward to and they're excited to be a part of. Now, speaking about being a part of something, there is a notion that says that high-performing employees usually don't stay long in places. I want to hear from you directly because honestly, I've heard that personally. I've seen people who are like, oh, I worked 2 years in this place. I worked 3 years in this place. Oh, I just did 6 months, So what do you think? Is that a truth? Is that a myth?
It's not always true. Okay. And of course, I know that the social media is also full of,
exactly.
a lot of things. I've seen fantastic employees staying very long in a place. I've worked with some good bosses that the only company they've ever worked for is that one single company all through their life. I love to mention the person who raised me in this line, or the persons, who raised me in this line of HR practice. People like Biodun Nkoya, people like Victor Famuyibo, they all their life, they work for one organization, and these are good performers. If you're thinking I'm talking of the 18th century, it's not the 18th century. Okay. However, even till today, what I said earlier comes to relevance. The organization must recognize them. There must be a talent management process where the worth and the work of these high-performing employees are recognized. That's why you have this high profile, in the talent management review. You have the high potentials, you have, and so on and so forth. If the organization, the HR especially, can have the management buy-in to have such a program, the high performing employees. You see, believe me, they will stay. Again, it's also the nature of some of us. We don't, no matter what.
Yeah,
we don't want to stay.
True.
Yeah. It's just like talking about jackpot. There's a survey there where we say, okay, what can we do to make you stay? 23% of that survey said, no matter, don't give me anything. There's no way no matter what you're going to give me, I'm not staying. 23% of the survey. So you see that some people have made up their mind that they will leave. Even for high performing people, some people don't just want to, people like me, the longest place I've ever worked anywhere is 5 years.
Wow.
So
that's very interesting. Now, speaking about employee retention, like I mentioned, this conversation about Gen Zs. I've heard so many stories that Gen Zs are giving the HR in their organization a lot of tough time. If there's any little stress, if they even perceive it, not necessarily that they've gone through it, so if they even perceive that there's stress down there, they will go and meet HR. Oh, you know what, I need to renegotiate, or you know what, I'm going to leave. Is that true? And how can we even address that?
Well, I don't, sincerely, it's not fair giving the Gen Z that kind of description, because all generations have their peculiarities. And I can tell you, whether you're a millennial, whether you're a baby boomer, somewhere along the line, if the environment is not conducive, you're quietly doing something. You can call it quiet quitting,
Interesting.
What I'm trying to say is that you're probably busy writing, contacting
other possible employers rather.
Employers, because if the environment is not there, it's not there. For the Gen Zs, yes, their peculiarity is that they are not as laid back as baby boomers. They are not expecting retirement check as their fathers. Most fathers of the Gen Zs are the baby boomers most of the time, or the early Gen X and so on. So what Gen Z has done, just like the previous generation, is that they've taken some characteristics of the previous generations. We have heard of Gen X people, that is the guys who followed the baby boomers, that they too were a bit impatient, right? Because that when they saw the way the baby boomers and the veterans were being treated, the Gen X came more like some kind of revolutionaries.
Yes.
They don't want to, their loyalty, to organizations. No, they want to do their own things and so on and so forth. So the same thing Gen Z that are coming after the millennials have this point of, look, I need to exhale. You can call it moderated exhaling. Fine. But they want to do their things. They want room to be given to them for flexibility.
Yes.
And of course, any culture that gives room for such creativity, for such thinking ability, the culture, that organization is going to benefit from the experiences people are bringing in. We have them at the home front.
Sure.
Permit me to just use the home front.
Yeah.
Some of us are old enough that some of our children are, millennials and Gen Zs, and we see how they bring ideas to the table. If you have used to shutting them up, fine. When you get to the work, you're going to say, who are you? When did you start? Where did you go to school? And
yes.
So what we need to do as HR practitioners, we need to encourage the entire organization to listen to these ones more. Yes, to listen to them more. They love organizations that we give room for learning and development. The organizations that we allow, we bring them to the table to have some conversation. And all we need to do as those before them is we are allowed to moderate. They are not asking us to leave them, to do whatever they like. So let us moderate, and by so doing, get the best from them. And I'm telling you, we have them working with me. I work for a company called Bezali Consulting. I'm just on sabbatical for the CIPM.
Okay.
For the CIPM role. So we have them around us, and we have a way of trying to encourage them to do whatsoever they want to do in a moderate way. We have had some of them who have japa, it's okay, fine. And some of them are still around. And each time we just want to be sure that wherever they go, They are our ambassadors. And this is what I'm going to recommend to my various colleagues, my colleagues, that the way we handle them is not the way they should go and they don't want to come back to us. I mean, because we've been talking about Jakpa, but nobody has mentioned Jakpada. Yes, yeah. So as people are going, people are
they're coming.
They are coming.
Yeah. So,
and of course, again, that's why I said that the slant to Jakpa is a global phenomenon. I'm telling you, I can tell you. I mean, our daughter is a medical doctor in Australia.
Fantastic.
She can tell you that, look, medical doctors from the UK are flooding into Australia.
Wow.
And that may not just be the only professional. There could be other moving around. It's a global labor movement all over the places. And how do we take advantage of it is what we should keep looking at.
Fantastic. Thank you for putting that in perspective. Speaking about taking advantage, what role or advantage does a good reward and benefit system play when it comes to employee retention?
If he eventually... Hey, he eventually came back to this place.
Indeed.
Okay. Coming to remuneration, coming to good package, you can't do without it. No. You can't let no one fool anybody. That, is very much, especially in this environment where we are trying to balance the rate of inflation and our take home. Somebody always crack a joke that even your take home can no longer take you home.
Indeed.
So it's very important, and we'll keep looking and we'll keep counseling. That's what CIPM does, to see how we partner with our members to see what are other ways we can do this. Even if you are not offering money in every situation, what are your benefits? What are the packages available that your employees can at least that will help. In fact, as a professional institute, recently we have gone into looking for how we can help our members. Looking at what we call benevolent loan, looking at other packages that those packages have already kicked in this January to see how we can assist fully, the people who are fully subscribed. What do I call it? Whose subscriptions are up to date?
Okay.
Yes, those are the ones we recognize as our members. If you are not paying your subscription, then because we rely as an institute on the subscriptions to come in. So what are we doing? We look at these things are not it's not balancing out. What you get as your salary, if you want to use that word. So where else can we even assist? And the mail has gone out to every member listening to me on this call knows that yes, the mail is there for all they need to do is to come forward and begin to enjoy that benefit. That's one of the reasons, even as an institute, a non-profit making institute. So I expect organizations that are making profits to look into their packaging, to look into their system and see what they can do in the area of remuneration. It is very important.
Absolutely. It is very important. All right. It's 4:54 and we're going to be wrapping this up very soon. Very brilliant words coming from Mr. Olusegun Mojeed, who is the president and chairman of the Governing Council, CIPM. So before we wrap this up, with all these things that you have mentioned, they're very pertinent. What is the major role of the HR in employee retention?
HR is the project owner when it comes to employee retention. However, HR cannot do it alone.
Indeed.
HR has to work hand in hand with all our colleagues in the business unit, in the strategic business units of the business, because of the organization. Because HR, you may have some fantastic ideas. If the chief finance officer is not your friend,
indeed,
your ideas ain't going nowhere. And if the MD is not buying, in fact, in the places I've done HR successfully, once we have the idea, we sell it to the MD and we allow the MD to run with it.
Okay.
We sell it to the MD. We allowed it. So by the time it's coming, the HR, as an HR person, I am not interested in bugaing. That is my idea. No. If you don't mind who takes the glory for that idea will go places.
Absolutely.
So for me, we need to work, although HR is the project owner, we must work with our other colleagues in the organization to make sure that our employees stay, because even no matter how much of the training given by HR, if that staff goes back to finance or to commercial and he or she is stuck down on all the money we've spent on training, in a jiffy will go out of the window.
Wow.
So we need to expose all our colleagues in the business to this is where the organization is going. This is how much we respect our employees and so on. I've once worked in an organization that monitoring anybody, whistleblowers were empowered that if any boss harasses you or anything, and we have a couple of such whistleblowing, and it was the management took it very seriously. So for me, HR, yes, the project owner, but we need the cooperation of everyone in the organization to make it work.
Okay, so this definitely is teamwork making the dream work.
Yes, exactly.
Like you mentioned. Fantastic. Thank you very, very much. Very insightful with the words that you have shared. If you are just tuning in, you have missed out a whole lot. So we're talking about employee retention, and Mr. Olusegun Mojeed, who is the president and chairman of the Governing Council, CIPM, was answering these pertinent questions he was being asked regarding this. So before we wrap up, any last words to cap this?
Okay, if he basically is just to encourage my colleagues out there as HR practitioners, let's keep doing what we are doing. And everywhere I've had the opportunity, I've had to appreciate my colleagues out there. We've just gone through a pandemic. I'm hoping that is over, because we can hear some other variants, but we've just gone through. And during the pandemic, HR actually showed up. We were the ones running up and down, yes, on behalf of the rest of the organization. And I want us to not to, that resilience, that spring on our heels. I don't want us to lose it. I don't want us to go back to the way things used to be done. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of positives in the pandemic. The world has now gone virtual, and then we are now doing the things we were paying lip service to for more than 10 years. The pandemic brought them suddenly, let me use that word, upon us. And we are in that space now. Let us own it as HR practitioners. And what do we need to do? We need to keep improving ourselves daily. We need to keep collaborating with our colleagues. Let's look for ways to collaborate. Let's look for ways to handshake across, not across the Niger now, but across the departments. Let's just collaborate with, because we could see how important HR is. We could see what we can actually do, and I want us to keep on on that trajectory. And this is the best time to be in HR, and this is the best profession you can be in at this time. Managing people, and performance. Believe me. So I want to encourage all my colleagues listening out to me there, and that it is a great place to be. And before you wrap me up, I want to say shout out to the entire members of my family. We're together having some holiday, together.
Fantastic.
So, and I'm sure they are listening. So I just
okay, shout out. Yeah. Hello. All right, thank you so much. I have learned a lot, and I'm sure a lot of people can attest to that as well. The office comes up every Thursday, 4:30 to 5 p.m. Just always make it a date with us right here on Lagos Talks 91.3 FM.
We are Lagos Talks 91.3.